Hello, Chris Moss here. I find myself in the south of Spain where the weather is distinctly drier and warmer than it is back in the UK at the moment. I'm here to ride this, Honda's new NT1100 Tourer. It's been a pretty big bike for Honda, this one. They've sold 20,000 units already, and this one promises to be better in that it's had a restyle. It's got a different sort of screen, fairing, lighting, claimed to be more comfortable, but more importantly, it's got more mid-range power and torque, and for the first time you can have the option of electronically adjusted suspension. This particular model, the DCT model, has that dual clutch transmission refined a bit. That's the version we've got here. We've got about a 120-mile ride planned up in the hills around the back of Malaga, and I'll let you know what it's like when I get back from that. So, back from, I think it was something like a 120-mile ride. Did about, I don't know, 90 miles before lunch. I had a fairly decent opinion of the bike, but then, unusually, Honda gave us the chance to ride the old bike, albeit very briefly, and it helped put this bike into much better context. And all I'll say is, because of the key change to one part of the chassis componentry, i.e. the suspension, this is a far superior bike to the old one. I had the old bike as a long-term test bike for about a year. I only did about 7,000 miles on it, but that was enough to give me a fairly good opinion of it. And something about it which made me a bit less excited to come here and test this bike was the quality of the suspension. It was a bit soft, bouncy, a bit vague. It made pushing the bike a bit harder feel a bit uncomfortable, shall we say. And that's what riding the old bike again did compared to this. If I tried to go as keenly as I did on this bike, feeling perfectly safe, this new electronically suspended bike, on the old bike, I'd be in big trouble. This has got so much more composure because of it. There's a lot more feel and feedback, so you just feel so much more confident as a result. The OE tyres on the old bike weren't so good. We've got Metzeler Road Tech 01s on this, which did a great job today, even when the road surface felt a bit iffy. Let's go through some of the other things. The engine, do you know what? I was too busy trying to analyse the suspension difference to notice whether the mid-range really feels distinctly better. But just riding this today, it certainly feels pretty damn good and usable. It's one of the best features of the bike, actually, the engine. Lots of broadly spread power and torque. Look, I'm on a DCT, so the gear's never going to be wrong because it changes appropriate to RPM and road speed. But I just felt keenness throughout the rev range, and it's very usable and manageable. We whipped it up to a fairly heady speed on some of the safer parts of the route, and even in town when you're riding really slowly, providing you just change the setting on the DCT to something other than sport, it's really quite smooth and linear and progressive with the power build-up. It's comfortable as far as I can tell. I did many a comfortable long journey on my old test bike, and the only real difference with this one is that the seat is shaped slightly differently and is claimed to be even more comfortable than the old one, and the screen shape is a bit different. I suspect it will be equally nice to do lots and lots of miles on. Another massive improvement with this new bike is the way that the screen's adjusted. The old setup was criminally bad to adjust. I didn't do as well as I could with that, but basically you grab, pull the lever out and just pull it up to your own suited height. On the old bike, because it was a two-hand operation, you had to actually stop to adjust the screen height. Who on earth passed that in Japan? I do not know. Brakes, very good, just as they've always been, but because the fork has a lot more composure now, they're even more effective. There is a myriad of settings for suspension and power. You have 3 preset riding modes. You have Tour, Urban and Rain. In each case, the power, the engine braking and the traction control and suspension are automatically adjusted to suit. But you also have 2 custom settings where you can really fine-tune your needs with the 4 aforementioned items: the power, the engine braking, the traction and the suspension. In short, you can have what you want. It's just a question of learning that, and because there are lots and lots of buttons, there are 13 buttons and switches on the left-hand switch pod. It's just a question of patience to learn how to extract what you need. But after a while today, because I've owned the bike before, I knew which buttons to press quite quickly to get what I wanted. The DCT has been refined a bit this time round as well. It's got a better system of allowing the clutch to bite. So it's just a bit more refined and controlled than it once was. So at very low speeds, you can just meter the throttle a little less carefully and still retain good control. You know, they've basically taken some of the rough edges off this bike. It's got bigger panniers now. They're 25 millimeters wider on each side, so filtering won't be quite as easy, but at last you can get a full face helmet in easily. I mean, in short, primarily because of that suspension, the electronic suspension, because there are other versions which I'll come to in a minute, this is the bike to go for, and it is distinctly superior to the old model. It'll be in the shops in January 25, and this spec of bike with a DCT and the electronic suspension costs £14,099. That's 420 quid more for the electronic suspension. Okay, the manual suspension has been upgraded, I'm told, and it may be a bit better than the old one, but it needs to be pretty tricked to match this. I really think this is the one to go for, given the fact that it isn't so much dearer. There are 3 specs of NT1100 to go for next year. You can have the manual gearbox version with standard suspension, the manually adjusted suspension. That's £12,679. That's the same price as the current model, so no increase. You can have the same bike with DCT and standard suspension. That's £1,000 more at £13,679. Or the one I'm definitely recommending, this one, Lecky suspension, DCT, £14,099. It's a no-brainer. That's the one to go for, really. To be honest, I wasn't looking forward to this test too much. I didn't think that the changes made to the new bike would make too much difference to the way it rode. I was totally wrong on that front. This version, at least, is now what I'd call, despite the fact Honda will hate this because they want to label it as a tourer, and nothing but a tourer, is in fact a sports tourer now. This is capable of being pushed with plenty of confidence and faith, but it's also capable of taking me to Scotland from here right now in a very practical, civilised and comfortable manner. This is a 500 to 1,000 mile a day bike, I suspect. It doesn't feel too much different to my long-termer on the comfort front, so I say that with a bit of credibility. But yeah, looking forward to riding it a lot more. Plenty of weather protection, big tank range, plenty of luggage, good performance. There's not much not to like. Couple of things that could be better. Far too many buttons and switches to press to get what you want from the suspension and power and modes et al. That could be a much easier process. If you spend enough time on the bike, it does become a lot more natural, but I think it could be improved and make that process of becoming knowledgeable and making things feel instinctive a lot faster. And the other thing that just winds me up virtually every time I switch the ignition on, The screen takes about 30 odd seconds to become live and give you the information. And it's got lots of it, but you can't see it. Only after about 30 seconds and you've pressed the screen can you know where you stand with those settings. That should be instantaneous. I can forgive both things because I do like the bike enough. Yeah, but if you want to work on something, Mr. Honda, I suggest that's not a bad place to start. As a tourer, the new NT1100 really hits the spot. Comfy, capable and fully equipped, it'll take you far and wide with real ease and convenience. Constantly being updated and refined, the electronic DCT gearbox really is very trick. Gear changes are swift and slick, you can't stall the bike and you'll always be first away from the lights. It might take time to get fully accustomed to, but once you do, there's a fair chance of loving it. The NT's Sure semi-active electronic suspension makes a huge difference to the way it rides compared to the old bike's manually adjusted setup. It gives the bike a lot more composure and control and really improves the handling. Its instantaneous adjustability is hugely convenient too. The NT now has a 6-axis IMU to give more precise control of the bike's electronics package. It effectively gives you cornering ABS and traction control and refines the timing of the DCT's gear changes. With its new fairing, headlight and integrated indicators, the new NT looks a lot more up to date and stylish. There are plenty of factors that make it easy to live with, particularly on a long journey. Protection from the screen's good. The fact that you can adjust it so easily now is a massive improvement. Got heated grips as standard, cruise control, panniers, sort of comfortable seat, big tank range, 200 miles, not a problem. Yeah, it's a friend, it's an ally. It's just what you want when you're spending, 10 hours or more on the road. It's a sorted bit of kit.